Hello, everybody. Recording from the van like you do. The kids have the next week off from school, and it's difficult to record while they're running around. So you record where you can. Obviously, I'm not at home. There's car and other things going by. That's just life. What I wanted to go over today was this is the 13th of February. Go over how the COVID data are looking right now from the CDC, and just a very quick comment about the states that lag so badly compared to all the other states. First, I want to note, when I went back this week to look at the COVID-19 mortality, I noticed this new page, COVID-19 mortality overview, and it's kind of like, here's the headline numbers, deaths, and this is deaths attributed to COVID-19 on death certificates. They have over 400,000 people. Note, and they have a nice note that sticks out here, an estimated 91% of the 443,000 COVID-19 was listed as the underlying cause of death. And remember, there's only one underlying cause of death. And then the remaining 9% have it as a contributing cause of death. So remember, the underlying cause of death is going to be, what ultimately kills you. You can have COVID as something that contributes to the death, but it wasn't what, powered the death, as it were. So, say you die of cancer, and it was the cancer that killed you. However, you had COVID, and that had effects on how the cancer progressed. You had a death certificate. It was a contributing cause of the death. Okay, and most death certificates always have to have one underlying cause of death. But as I've mentioned in the past, that there's usually about 3 causes of death listed on death certificates. And it's been increasing the number of causes. And that might be improvements in procedures or just that older and older people are dying. They have highs and lows of COVID-19 deaths. I don't find this very interesting. And these are weekly totals, yada, yada. I don't care. Here's something of interest given the current brouhaha over Andrew Cuomo, in that New York State was hiding nursing home deaths. Again, they were recording that if you were a nursing home resident and you caught COVID in the nursing home, however, you got transferred to a hospital and you died in the hospital, they said you died in the hospital. So they have 64% of the COVID deaths, okay, are in hospital or other inpatient care, and 21% of the deaths are at nursing home. So let's see, that's 85%. What about the remaining 15%? My assumption is most of them would be at home. Death by age group. Again, these are COVID deaths. It would be nice if they had the comparison here of what percent of all deaths are usually in these age groups, but that's okay. So 81% are in the 65 and over group. So what percent, and I don't have it in the back of my head, I would have to actually go look it up, what percent of deaths in 2019 were for the 65 and over age group? It was probably, at least 80%. 45 to 64, 16%, and under 45, 2.5%. Again, it's relative to, what you get in a normal year would be useful. With regards to percent by race and Hispanic origin, you get a breakdown here, just noting that, the non-Hispanic Black, 15%, that's higher than non-Hispanic Blacks in the entire population. But a lot of this is being influenced by some geographies being harder hit than other geographies. So that's something to think about. They have comorbidities that are listed, and again, that doesn't mean other things killed them, but that the same, that these conditions were present when the person died, and this is of COVID deaths. So giving an example, Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. As I have mentioned in the past, how does Alzheimer's kill you? How does cancer kill you, say? So these are things to think about. I don't notice cancer mentioned here. These are the most common ones. So um, it seems likely a lot of these people had pneumonia in addition, or it could have been pneumonia caused by COVID. Pneumonia doesn't mean it comes from a pneumonia virus. It's a particular condition you have. So this is that, and these can be overlapping, obviously. 44.5% had listed as flu and pneumonia, and probably almost all was pneumonia. Doesn't mean, oh, it was really pneumonia that killed them. Yeah, pneumonia caused by COVID. Come on. Total excess deaths. So notice this. They make their own estimate of excess deaths for the particular time period. And this is true, and I had looked as well already. There didn't seem to be any excess deaths in January 2020. There was very few excess deaths in February 2020. It didn't start kicking in until March 2020. So don't get too head up about, it was there before. No, okay. We didn't start seeing that spike grow of deaths until the end of March. So 504,000, compare that to that 443. So we are seeing more excess deaths than were listed from COVID. Now, some of these excess deaths that were not listed as having COVID probably were COVID, but we'll get to that in a moment. Daily updates of totals by week and state. And I'm not going to do a rundown of all the things. I just want to show you what data are available, which ones, most of these, I'm just looking here, it's not useful. I'm like, oh, it's a table. The underlying data, if you want to download it, okay, here we go. Deaths from all causes for 2020, I'm feeling good, 3.3 million. I believe that was within my range of estimates, about 3.3 million deaths. So good, yes. There might be more, of course, because North Carolina, not only North Carolina, but North Carolina is the worst delayed state of all the states with an appreciable number of deaths. I'm just going down some of these. So they have a whole bunch of these tables of numbers, yada, yada. Yeah, and then there are some graphs. Here's all ages, COVID-19 deaths specifically for all ages, all sexes. And you can change the age group to see, okay, let's just do 85 and over. Obviously, the scale changes, but the shape's about the same. And you'll notice the shape is going to be about the same for the old age groups, and there's 65. Then once I start getting below 65, let's see, 55. Oh, geez, they didn't fix. Okay, guys, working this, who are putting up this, and they're not using Tableau. This is interesting. They're using Microsoft Power BI now. Maybe that's why a lot of these changed. Okay, person who's doing the Microsoft Power BI for the CDC, you have got to realize, see the 5 to 14 years, this is what happens like with pivot tables and that kind of thing. You've got to force the ordering of these labels so they're in the correct increasing, so it goes 1 to 4, 5 to 14. A really easy way to do this is to put a 0 in front of the 5 and a 0 in front of the 1 for 0, 1 to 0, 4 years, 0, 5 to 14 years, and then it will sort correctly. But I think, I haven't done a lot of Power BI myself, you should be able to manually adjust the order that goes in, because this is ridiculous. Because I wanted to show it really starts dropping down. Once you get below age 45, it's starting to get very noisy. And these are supposed to be the COVID deaths. Getting down here, it's a lot noisier and noisier. If I do total deaths, okay, so now you can see, and this is week to week, it's pretty noisy because there's a very few deaths in that group. We see the top level is 800. If I go to an older group, 45 to 54, now we're at 4,000. And 65 to 74, that's more like 12,000. And you see this flat here, that's kind of the natural level that you're expecting for that age. Okay, and you can go through these various tables that are broken out. They have one for race and Hispanic origin, though I need to look into this a little more. There are issues with Hispanic status for death certificates versus trying to figure out a rate and things like that. And it gets a little hairy for a lot of people with regards to people understand if you don't adjust for age distribution, okay, this is the percentage. And it's hard to see that there's much difference between the distribution of COVID deaths among non-Hispanic whites and their unweighted distribution in the population. But the non-Hispanic white population tends to be older anyway. It gets to be more difficult to explain. But here we go. Here's all of our dashboards. Going down here. And this one's loaded up. Now this one's Tableau. The other ones are Power BI. I want to say something, and this is the total deaths and going back to 2017. The yellow line is this threshold for excess mortality. Now note, just because it's below that line doesn't mean, oh, it's lower mortality than expected. No, this is using a particular kind of threshold measurement, allowing a certain amount of variability due to just you get mortality variability anyway. And I think that's from a 95th percentile confidence interval. And if it goes above that, obviously it's excess mortality. And we can see this third wave we have, and this might be the kind of wave we see every year, like we have with flu and pneumonia, that this is something that we just end up expecting every year. Even with the vaccine, I don't know, maybe it'll be like with flu and pneumonia, and it will come down some, and perhaps people will continue various distancing and masking in the winter months if this becomes a seasonal thing. Let me just pull up North Carolina because I did find something out. I finally looked up to figure out why this pattern. So it's dropping off, and the last date I have here is up to October 31st. And what's interesting to me, it seems to come in month batches at a time. And it almost definitely is month batches at a time because I found out the reason why North Carolina and Connecticut and West Virginia and Rhode Island are slow, and North Carolina is the slowest of all of them. They don't use electronic death records or the registry that the CDC uses. They use paper. So here's the bits. Why is North Carolina delayed in reporting COVID-19 death data? Its death certificates, they use a paper-based system. North Carolina, with Research Triangle Park and all of those tech people, you couldn't figure out a way to do it. Connecticut really has no excuse either. That's a bunch of rich people in a relatively small state. Rhode Island, again, relatively small state, though I will admit its finances suck. Actually, Connecticut's finances suck too. But North Carolina does not have any excuse. And then West Virginia has had a hard time. It's been losing population with the death of the coal industry. It's really been hard hit. So, I'm not going to shake my finger at West Virginia, but really, North Carolina, you suck. Fix it. Now, they did pass, and I will link these. You can read these yourself. Here's one. North Carolina CDC says North Carolina is the only state not to submit mortality data from death certificates. So that's great. And then finally, someone did a paper January of this year, 2021, that looked at the timeliness of the data coming to the CDC. And again, it's Connecticut, Rhode Island, West Virginia, and North Carolina. Some of their, they used, this is the method we use. But when only 4 states are not using the electronic reporting, or some of them say 3 states. It's not clear to me. I was trying to get into this. 4 states did not use electronic death registration. That's what this paper says, and maybe they're wrong about one of the states. But I think everybody's in agreement that North Carolina does not use electronic death registration, even if in 2017 their legislature said, yeah, we're going to do this. Well, it's 2021. Get it done, guys. South Carolina got it done. Why can't North Carolina get it done? Dear Lord, people. So let's look at South Carolina, actually, because someone was showing me a map of the cases. And yeah, it's been getting bad in South Carolina. And that's in January 16. Let me look at New York City and then New York State. So New York City, and I've pointed this out before, you get this spike in April, and then it kind of went up a little bit in the winter, but not really much. If we look at the entire state, excluding New York City, so New York. So we have that April peak, nothing going on in the summer at all. And then, yeah, it looks like, and it's not clear to me. I'm going to switch this to excess deaths with and without waiting, okay? Because that shows you what was actually reported. That's the dark blue. And then the light blue is the completion of the number of deaths. So we don't know if New York State had peaked in January and coming down. So that's useful to know. Let's look at California. Okay, so California, again, there's a lot of completion going on through January. It's not clear whether the deaths are really coming down. And notice, I'm using total deaths because after the New York State nursing home death stuff, and I will be looking more at that data, we've known that you couldn't rely on that data. There were already situations, and I'm going to get into, let's see, weekly number of deaths by cause. Let me do that one. Okay. What I've always been suspicious of is the supposed peak in Alzheimer's disease and dementia in the spring. I can believe elevated deaths due to Alzheimer's because, of lockdowns, and as time goes on, it really erodes their health situation. Not going to disagree with that. That happens to people. That said, if you get a spike, like the circulatory diseases spike, and that's really just heart attacks, I am suspicious that the COVID itself caused the heart attacks, not necessarily that people did not go to the hospital. But I am not sure. Let me go to New York City. And here you see the spike in circulatory diseases and respiratory diseases. My assumption, because most people who have heart attacks, a lot of people survive even if they don't go to the hospital. I really think, something like a heart attack, people still go to the hospital. I could be wrong, but yeah, there's a little nubbin for Alzheimer's and then other select causes. One thinks that it was really, and notice nothing for cancer, okay, which is what I would expect. Cancer doesn't kill you quickly. Alzheimer's shouldn't kill you quickly either. But there's just a little bit of a nubbin, but that's for New York City. Let's look at New York State. Now, New York State, we're seeing, there's a lot of noise here. But again, circulatory diseases, and if you dig into this, so if we do by subgroup, we can really get into that, and we'll see that it's heart attacks. So for respiratory diseases, you see this flu and pneumonia, and again, that's almost definitely COVID. But when you see it's only 150, that's not a lot of people. Let's go to Alzheimer's. It just makes it bigger so we can see. This is more people, actually. And again, I'm thinking a lot of these could be some of the nursing home deaths. Not really trusting the characterization of the causes of the deaths. Yeah, so here, that spike, it's not because of lockdown and the people having Alzheimer's, it killed them rapidly. As far as I understand, Alzheimer's does not kill rapidly. Like, cancer does not kill rapidly. Almost definitely these people died of COVID. That's my assumption looking at these data. So you should always question the data. And finally, what I use for when I do my own visualizations is I go here. Um, these are all of the data sets. I download them in their entirety and do the kinds of visualizations I want to do. So I will be doing that, and then you can get into the technical notes. But um, while getting back to the North Carolina issue, and again, I'm one of the many states I'm from is North Carolina. It's very depressing to me that North Carolina has been stuck in this paper-based system, and they didn't get around to saying, "Oh yeah, we need to update it." They didn't get around to that until 2017. When I left North Carolina in 1996 for New York. Um, it was a hotbed as part of that dot-com boom there in the Triangle, and they could have been doing electronic death records then. It's not really all that complicated to get it together. Yes, but from a database point of view, there's only so much data that goes into a death record. I've looked at some working at insurance companies where we had to investigate some death claims. Um, and you get into the detail. Cause of death was definitely one of the things that I had to look at. Um, so, come on, guys, get it together. I hope they get something together this year, 2021. So long after I left, 25 years after I left North Carolina, and you're going to get around to it now, guys. Okay. I'm sure you really care that Mary Pat Campbell is disappointed in you, North Carolina, especially since I left you 25 years ago and have no intention of going back again to live. Still, it's just like, come on, guys. Come on, guys. Anyway, at least they're not lying about their data. More on that another time.